Hi, I'm Andrew Carwardine. I'm the Defence Senior Partner here at RCK Partners.
I'm Zeb Cohen, Partner here at RCK Partners.
My background, I'm ex-professional soldier. I served for 27 years in the regular military and left as a senior officer. So my background includes the operational tours that you would expect, command of a regular regiment, but it also included being the head of business intelligence for the British Army and having quite a lot of influence over policy decisions in the Ministry of Defence, working with the Chief of the Defence Staff and in my own right in the Resources and Programmes branch. I've then remained in the reserve for about 15 years since I left the regulars. So on leaving the military, I set up my own software business, which was a business around digital twinning. That was private equity backed, and I made a successful exit from that in 2019. And then since then, I've continued to be an advisor to the Ministry of Defence and a board advisor to various technology companies.
Andrew is very much a natural fit for us, given his military credentials, his experience within the tech sector, and also his experience as an independent advisor to the MOD. Andrew has been an absolute asset to RCK Partners in his short time here. Since joining, Andrew has helped us navigate the UK defence sector and bolster our offering for UK defence clients.
So look, it's really important within the defence side, particularly when claiming R&D tax credits, that an advisor such as RCK knows the landscape within defence and has a focused element within the business to be able to support defence needs and the needs of tech companies within the defence sector. We've done that in RCK by setting up effectively a defence section here, and within that, what we've made sure is that we've looked at making sure that we have qualified individuals, both from a security clearance perspective, but also from an experiential perspective, who understand the complexity of dealing with technology in defence. A good example of that is many defence companies will work on projects which are classified. There is always a difficulty there in making sure that you balance the right amount of detail so that HMRC are happy to award the defence tax credit, and you don't actually let the cat out of the bag when it comes to anything classified or secret. And here at RCK, that's what we've really concentrated on, whether it's separation of data from the mainstream or whether it's individuals who are properly qualified. That has been our focus, and that's where we're heading with defence in RCK. I was delighted to come on board. Obviously RCK already had Lord Philip Hammond on board. Between the two of us, we've been able to look at both the strategic and the operational requirement for companies within the UK R&D tax claiming sector. And I think that makes RCK a very powerful force in the industry. So in terms of the actual process for delivering to clients to look at their R&D tax claims, we're really concentrating on the security of data and making sure that we're able to help clients interpret potentially classified data into a structure which allows HMRC to then be able to award R&D tax credits in a confident way. And I think Zeb's now going to take us just through the process of how that's done and the steps that we take.
Absolutely, thanks Andrew. So once all the relevant engagement letters, security authorization letters and NDAs have been signed, we will then kick off the process with an onboarding meeting. So that's where we introduce you to the consultants who will be working on your tax credit claim. Typically they will have a background in engineering or tech and will sit within the defence business of RCK. Second part of the process is scoping. This is when we come to site with our security cleared personnel who will be able to talk to the project leads on your end about the relevant R&D projects. We intend to gather all the information we need in order to write our technical reports within this period. This is always done on site, particularly when dealing with classified information. Final part of the process is the financial assessment. So we work closely alongside your internal accounts team, along with your accountant, to gather all the necessary ledgers in order to compile our cost collection sheets, where we apportion R&D percentages and intensities to your qualifying expenditure. Once both technical narrative and financial assessment have been completed, they will then be peer reviewed within the defence team, followed by a final check by our independent compliance function. So within that compliance function sit individuals who hold security clearance and are allowed to view and process classified information. They will then review your R&D projects and your financial workings to ensure that they are within the confines of the HMRC legislation and guidelines.
And I think it's worth noting at this point that when we talk about classified information, it's appropriately classified information. So if a client is working on something very highly classified, we will not take that classified information into compliance, but we will work with the client to ensure that we have something which is appropriately classified for transmission to HMRC. It'll come as no surprise to understand that the largest challenges facing R&D in defence revolve around capitalisation, and this is where tax credits comes in. Obviously, there's been a period of time in the last decade where defence has really not been at the forefront of people's minds, but that has changed. And one of the things we're trying to do here at RCK is to make sure that the really excellent R&D capability that we have in the United Kingdom is properly capitalised and takes and makes sure that we have the proper incentives from HMRC being claimed. So really the main issue in defence R&D at the moment is the ability to do R&D that might not be successful. So you might have to do some work on a particular direction on a different path, whether that's with software or whether it's with physical kit, and that might not work. And you've got to be assured that if you do that, you're actually going to be able to claim what you need to be able to claim for it. And you can then incentivise your R&D teams to really think about what they can deliver. And of course, the other thing in the last few years has been the pace of change and the challenge of the Ukraine war, which has seen defence technology change at a pace that we haven't seen since the end of the Second World War, in fact, since the beginning of the Second World War. So what we're now seeing is technology having to adapt to a changing battlefield and changing threats in a way that we haven't done for 30 or 40 years. And where that comes in for the R&D side in the UK is really about the ability to innovate quickly. And again, I come straight back to the fact that if you're going to innovate quickly, it's good to be supported by the government, and it's good to claim everything that you can claim, because ultimately we're talking about tempo, and we're talking about tempo in relation to an adversary, and we need to outthink them as well as outfight them. On the basis of my experience post leaving the military as a technology chief executive officer, one of the reasons I came to RCK was because I'm passionate about the fact that I never claimed everything that I could. There were categories that I found opaque as an operator, and even my financial director found opaque, that we really could have done with the sort of specific guidance that RCK are able to offer the market. I'm going to hand over to Zeb so that he can just talk a little bit about some of the things that you might not have thought about.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so when claiming R&D tax credits, a situation we commonly find ourselves in is optimizing the work of other third-party incumbents or in-house teams, or potentially their external accountants. What we see regularly is companies failing to qualify indirect qualifying activities. This includes any kind of ancillary costs associated with the R&D projects. So for example, you may have a support team who aren't necessarily involved in the direct qualifying activity of the R&D projects, but who help support and facilitate that R&D activity. We can then claim a percentage of those costs back as qualifying indirect activity.